afternoon. We'd like to welcome everybody to this afternoon study session from Mesa City Council for Monday, December 2nd, 2013. I'd like to excuse Councilmember Scott Summers, who was stuck in traffic, but he says he'll be here for tonight's council meeting. First item is to review the agenda for tonight's meeting. We'll begin on page 2. Items 3A through 2 through 3C. Items 4A through 4C. Items 4D through 4F. Yeah, Councilmember Richens.
4E, the traffic signal adaptation is, well, hold on, let's see if that's the right one. No, it's 4G, my mistake.
Okay, come on. 4G is pedestrian countdown.
Yeah, sorry, it was.
So Alan,
you after all, Alan.
Alan, come up here in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
That was funny. Shockingly enough, that was funny. Every once in a while, he hits one, you know. I'm down way down. I've been down at the end of this desk for 5 years. I can say whatever I want.
Even with your eyes closed, you take a swing, you're going to hit one sooner or later.
I guess I'm going to stay down here for 3 more. So I was just curious how you were prioritizing the installation of these. I've had some folks making requests in school zones to have the countdown timers, for example, at Rio Salado and Westwood by Westwood High School, and I think they're already at University in Westwood. But are we prioritizing school zones for these countdown timers first, or how does that work?
Mayor Smith and Councilmember Richens, this actually will cover all of the remaining intersections where they haven't already been installed. We've had a couple of projects over the years, and this will take care of the rest of the city.
Okay, so the entire city's done with this.
It will be after
Wonderful.
this.
Great answer. Thanks.
The answer is yes.
So,
priority.
So the one at Westwood goes in first. Excellent. Thank you.
Should be a pretty quick project.
Great. You make me look like a rock star. Appreciate it.
And we appreciate that you make him look like a rock star, too. Okay, anything else? Item 4G through 6B. Items 7A through 8A. 8B, by the way, on the agenda is actually 8A.
There is no 8A.
Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is to hear a presentation, discuss, and update on Advantage, the city's integrated information system. The whole team.
Whole team.
Candace, you're sitting in the middle, so it looks like you're leading the way.
That's right.
Oh.
Mayor, council members, good evening.
Michael, go ahead.
I'm Mike Kennington, the Chief Financial Officer. As you know, we have Candace Canestraro, our Budget Director. Sitting next to her, we have Irma Ashworth, our Finance Director. And next to her, we have Terry Overby, one of our HR administrators. We're thankful for this opportunity we have to give you an update on Advantage, more commonly referred to as City Edge, the project name. In this presentation, we'd like to give you guys a little background for those that weren't around before, Councilmember Luna, myself as well. Then kind of go through a then and now section where we compare and contrast. And then we have a slide in there about some of the changes we're making, some of the processes we put in place to continually improve the system and enhance it. And finally, we'll have a budget update. So with that, without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Candace.
The project known as City Edge is really a transformational change for the city of Mesa. It was not just coming in and replacing one software package with another software package. It was actually going through the entire city and replacing not only our financial system, our human resource system, our timekeeping system, purchasing, budget system. There's a whole lot of things, everything that's integrated together. So it was really a transformational change for the city. It impacted everybody. Every single employee in the city, because we changed our timekeeping system. It changed everything on how we do our processes, our invoices, our purchasing, how we tracked our budget and so forth. So it was really a large change for the city that came through. What we found, what we had before, we had inconsistent processes throughout the city. Because we had a disjointed system within the city, different processes had popped up in different departments. Having a central system has allowed us to take those processes and centralize them and create a more consistent environment for our employees and for our departments. We tried to go through more of a data analysis environment. Our environment that we had before was so manual process that we were looking at data processing is where we spent the most of our time as staff, rather than on the analysis side. We wanted to get more into the analysis side, and that was one of the goals of this particular project. One of the other goals is to leverage technology as we could in any of the business processes within the city of Mesa, and so that was one of the goals within this project as well. Sorry. The next slide just gives you kind of a timeline. This is not something that can be done overnight. This is something, because of the transformation that we're making here within the city of Mesa, this is something that has to be done on an ongoing or a continuous process. You can see from our timeline, we started back, there was work actually done before the summer of 2009, but that was the first time we actually interacted with any type of a vendor to see what was actually out there in the industry. The system that we came from was over 30 years old. Most of our processes were built around the system versus being built around the best business processes that we could do. So this just gives you an overall timeline. Our very last module to go live just went live in May of 2013. That was our human resource module, and that was the last one of our 3 major ones. We did the budgeting system went first, financial system came online after that, and then our human resource management system came online after that. Councilmember, sorry.
Councilman Luna?
Is it like a Chrono system where employees swipe in and out? Is that how you're doing your timekeeping system?
That's how the Chrono system is the vendor that we have right now for our timekeeping.
Okay.
Correct, and that went live with our financial system back in July of 2013.
Okay.
Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the financial management system, some of the then and now. The financial documents are required in the system before payment occurs. That's something that is new for our financial system. Previously in the old system, you didn't have to have all that documentation approved or in the system before you could have a payment. The workflow approvals required in all documents is also something that's new that wasn't required in the past. Different levels of approval depending on the department and how they have the workflow set up. Transactions information is available the same day. As opposed to 6 business days. In the past, after the month would close, finance would get all the reports together 6 days after, and they would be static reports, and that's when you had information. Now, as soon as the transaction is approved in the system, you can query that information, and it's available the next day in the Advantage reports that we have. And improved accountability and data integrity and compliance with federal laws and regulations. As I said previously, since all the documentation is required to be in the system beforehand, you know that you have everything's approved, and it's easier to monitor the compliance with the laws and regulations. Transaction documentation notes are available online. Previously, if it was a very manual process, if you wanted to do research in the past, there was big binders of reports that you could go through, find the next report to go to, flip through that one, find the next report to go through, flip through that one, and then eventually get to the journal ledger, the journal entry that was done, or to the microfiche. It told you what microfiche to go to so you can research that data. Now all that information is in the system. Oops, sorry, wrong way.
Part of that, too, as Irma was talking about, is all that process was manual. It was going through, sometimes physically moving between departments to go look at paper copies that were held in a file somewhere. And what we had done is, in order for us to actually query that data for the last 10, 14 years, is we've been pulling that data out and using a side system to do all of our transactions and our querying so that we could actually try to manage the data. So we weren't able to manage the data with the financial system we had. We were doing a workaround. Trying to do it outside of the system. So this system is now allowing us to do that within the system where it should be. It's using the same data. It's the official financial records of the city versus using some type of a secondary system for that. Part of the things that changed in the system is also the budget management that we're able to do in this system. In the old system, there was no budget control on the front end. Everything was done after the fact. After the purchase was already made, after the month had already closed, they could review the documents, see where they were on their budget, what they'd expended, and what they had left to go. The current system now checks the budget availability at the time a document is put in the system. So once that document is put in, before it even has final approval, the budget is checked for that particular area that's trying to do that purchase, and that budget is set aside or reserved. So once it's gone to final, someone has approved that document, that budget is reserved and set aside and cannot be used by anybody else unless it's released. For example, they discontinue that purchase or they cancel or something like that. So everything is done on the front end now for budget control and checking. Departments also have the ability to move their budget around. The budget we had in the old system was a static budget. It was loaded one time. What that resulted in was a lot of departments managing their budget offline, whether it's through spreadsheets or through another Access database that they set up themselves to say, here's where we originally budgeted, but we need to move some money over here, we need to move some money over there. They would do it offline. They now have the ability to do that online, to actually manage their budget online, whether it's between line items or activities or areas within their department, or even sometimes between departments. If some functionality got moved to another department mid-year through the year, they're able to do that online. The other thing we're able to do online now that used to be a manual process is our contingency for those areas that have unanticipated expenses during the year and need additional budget allocation. They're able to actually request that online. Everything used to be offline through emails and attachments previously. Now it's all online and can be, again, queried and resourced.
On the human resource side, there is a decentralization of the personnel transactions to the department level, meaning that before we had a paper process or an email routed process that the department would fill out, it would get routed through the system through email or hand delivered over, and then HR would enter the transaction into the system. Whereas right now, the departments can enter all of the transactions into the system. There is an automated approval process and workflow process through the HRM Advantage system, and then it goes through that approval to a final document in the system. There is an automated workflow versus the paper process that I just discussed. In addition, there is functionality that automatically allows for terminations to terminate the benefits and send notifications out to the various parties that are involved, whereas before a termination, for example, used to be a paper process that was routed around and then notifications had to be made to payroll and to IT and municipal security, et cetera, to notify them to process out a termination. Now the system allows it to automatically terminate the benefits for the employee and to send those notifications out. In addition, there's automated processes for terminations, for performance appraisals, for benefits, and this eliminates the manual and the double entry. Right now we have, like in the benefits side, they have processes where they previously had to enter the system, enter the transaction into the system, and then also double enter the transaction into the claims system. So now it interfaces into the claims system with one transaction. For the HRM module, we have employee self-service, which allows the employees to change and update their address and phone number information. It also allows them to update their emergency contact information. It allows them to view their pay stub information online and allows them to update their W-4s, which is their federal deductions. It also allows the employees to perform what-if calculations, so if they want to change their dependent coverage or they want to change their deferred comp, they can change that and see what impact that would have on their paycheck. It also allows employees to request to be placed on the donated leave program.
Okay, one of the overarching goals that we've had for the system is to continually improve the system and the processes. We've received feedback throughout the year and a half that we've been live with the financial system and a half year with the HRM system informally, and we've acted on those and we're investigated and attempted to improve every day and enhance the system. We've also set up formal processes to receive the feedback from the departments as well that we present to the city management and discuss as well. So there's some examples of some changes we've made currently are the decentralizing of the receipt of invoices. We've also made changes so that our education, we've updated accounting. We've put an update on accounting websites for the departments. We're also in the process of setting up a team that'll go into the departments and help out and find out what are the real problems and how we can help them. And so these are some examples of some things that we've tried to do to enhance the process, and that's been our overarching goal, is to continually enhance the system and the process. We're not done, is basically the message I'd like to convey.
Councilman Richens?
Yeah.
What part of it handles utility invoices? I was just wondering, because we've talked about it from time to time about how on utility invoices, sometimes you get one line on the top of the third page, and we have all this wasted space.
Yeah,
What part of the system handles that? So I get a front and back invoice for my water and garbage bill instead of it rolling over to a single line and wasting a whole other sheet of paper. Curious as to if that was part of this or if it's some other process.
This is a very large system, and the customer information system, CIS as we refer to it, is a very large system. The two systems just integrate through the cash receipt processing, so that they're not the same system.
That's a different, the printing out of that information is a separate system from this. But that's something we can continue to look at. But it's not what's being
Yes,
discussed
please
here.
do continue to look at that.
This is
That's
not-
costing us a fair sum of money.
Yeah, that's not included in what's being discussed here.
okay, if there's no further questions on that section, we'll go jump to the budget update.
But let me ask you some question. How many, if you had to define the number of transactions this city entity processed, would it be in the thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions?
Just in AP invoices alone, there's about 6,000 invoices a month.
Okay, so that's 75,000 right there, rounded up.
Yeah.
Okay, then you have payroll, then you have other things, and then you have cash collect. Now, you said as part of this collection, the utility collections are totally different than this, the billing and all that is totally
The
different.
utilities is different.
Okay. Is that something that eventually will be drawn into this system, or will that stay separately? Stay separate, I mean.
I think that has to interface.
There you go, Ed.
Mr. Mayor, that is a separate niche. It really doesn't fall into the financial system. It feeds in, the data feeds into the financial system, but it is a self-contained component. It does the meter reading, it does the billing for the meters, the collection, all that stuff.
Okay, and then it batches it and
Yes.
then dumps that into this system?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's a specialty system.
But if you included that, our financial, not this, but the whole financial process, and that would be an additional
About 160,000
50,000
transactions a month.
So we're actually up into literally over 1 million transactions
Yes,
Yes.
a year.
Yeah.
Several hundred thousand
millions.
from this system alone, but then, 150+ thousand a month just on our utility system. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to get some context to when you say we're a big business. I mean, we do over $1 billion a year in cash flow through this business when you can in all the
Yeah,
utilities.
we
and all
figured
those.
as payroll, we do payroll twice a month for 4,000 plus payrolls,
Yeah.
I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's right, when you count part-time.
So it starts adding up, yeah.
Okay. Well, if I could ask you something, Michael.
Yeah.
Would you define the continuing process? And I think we have to recognize that there's really two gigantic things going on here.
Yeah.
One, you have a computer system,
Yeah.
and then you have a human system or an organizational system or a process system on how you accumulate and how that data then gets into the software system.
Yeah.
And really, this entailed a complete review and reorganization of both those issues.
You're right. This has been a cultural change and a system change. We've been doing something for 30 years in our prior system, and then we have this new system, and we've asked people to make some changes. And there's been a lot of work on the user side and the project side throughout the city, and making this happen.
When you talk about the education and the modifications and that,
Yeah.
do most of those tend to lie on the human side, the process, the culture they're talking about, or do we still have software issues that we're working through?
I think it depends on the situation. I mean, there's certain functionality of the system that, we need to do better at getting out there and educating people, helping them access the potential that the system has. And so there's opportunity there to improve on.
Okay, now, do we feel comfortable that the software is delivering us the information that we're inputting?
So what
We're not pushing a button and saying,
No.
crud, it froze up on me, I'm not getting the information out.
No.
We're not missing payroll, we're not missing AP, we're processing, the software is processing the data. It's logging in the invoices, it's cutting checks to our vendors, it's cutting checks to our employees,
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly
That's
right.
correct. And what we're seeing as we go out with one of our teams, our advanced response team that we're putting together, and we'll be going out to the departments, those are the types of things we're looking for, is where if there is stress factors within the department, what's causing the stress factors? Is that something from the way we configured the system or the way the system was delivered to us? Is it something in the way that they're interacting with the system? Is it a matter of just not understanding that there's a tool out there, if there's a report or a query available? There's a lot of information in this system. In order to have a lot of information, it takes a little bit more to get it in because you're putting more information in. But once it's in, it's nice to be able to go in because it's there. It's a matter of making sure that people understand what is there, what's available. And that's part of us going out into the departments and actually sitting with the departments, the people who are doing the work, who are interacting with the system, and saying, tell me what you're having trouble with. Tell me what you're trying to get out, and let us try to help you and get the right resources to help you, because it's new to all of us. And so we all know different pieces. And so if we get the right resources with the department, there's a lot of information that we can get out that we did not have the ability to get out of the old system.
And I would also hope that because we've changed process and because of this cultural change, no matter how, having done this a few times, no matter how well you plan and implement and design a system, when it actually gets up and running, you always find little quirks that the system, the process you've defined or designed and defined may not quite fit the realities of day-to-day operations. And so I'm hoping that you're looking at tweaking those with the departments and maybe recognizing the realities of day-to-day life.
Yes, and we're a full-service city, and so a lot of the different areas have different concerns and different needs from what might have been the standard setup.
Gotcha. Councilmember Luna.
What kind of training modules do you provide your employees? So if they get stuck on something, is there something that they can look at, or how does that work?
We actually have a learning center that's online that provides a lot of various job aids. Everyone who had access to the system was put through training classes, both on just the navigation of the system, because it is new, and also classes aimed at just the particular thing they're doing, whether it's a purchasing document, whether it's a budget adjustment they're trying to do an invoice, they're trying to process an HR, human resource transaction. So everyone who has that role, who has access to the system, had classes available, and those classes will continue into the future. We actually have trainers, a financial trainer, a human resource trainer, and a purchasing trainer that are dedicated to those particular things, creating the job aids, creating the online. So if you go out to our learning center, you can either sign up for a class or you can walk through a class. We also have ones that do screenshots where they do them click by click. Here's how you click here, and it kind of the screen takes you through it. So we're trying to continuously improve those and keep those up to date. As we find things that we may need to modify, we need to go back and update some of those training modules. That's what we're working on right now, is trying to go through that. We've been without a financial trainer for a little while, so we hope to have one on board here soon that can start to update some of those modules or the training modules from when we trained originally to some of the changes we've made over this last year and a half with all the feedback. We now need to go back to the training manuals and update those with the latest and greatest.
But Mayor, also I think it's interesting to note, you'll see this, one of the ways we set up the system or help configure the system, we did it with in-house personnel. We actually pulled individuals out of their departments and sat them into the system to help configure the system. So not only did we have to train individuals, we actually had, I guess, embedded experts in different departments because they were actually there on the front end. Now, we're seeing that some departments we have to not every department has someone like that or fully engaged, but you'll notice, and we notice, there are those departments that had individuals who are involved in the configuration on the front end are probably further along in understanding what to do, and now we're reaching out and prioritizing other departments to go out and help them.
And some other tools that we're also using is we have a group that people can email who are more experienced with the system if they want to ask particular questions from different departments, kind of gaining that experienced users out there in the city so that we can do a peer-to-peer. You know, I'm trying to do this, and someone says, well, I found this one. This works really well. Here's what you do. Or here's the report you need to run. So we're trying to use that as well, and we'll continue to expand that as we continue to get more experienced users out in the departments.
Okay, any more other questions? Great, thank you.
Do the budget, or do we?
Oh, I'm sorry, budget. Yeah, go ahead. Budget, do that.
The project is expected to remain within budget. What we have here is the first column is the budget that we brought to you back in September of 2010. And then what we're doing, then our revised estimate is over here to the right. The original estimates we showed you were just over the it was $24,670,000 for the original budget. That did not include using existing staff time on this project. As we have mentioned, this project is all-encompassing. It took education and experience and skill sets from around the city. We wanted to get the most experienced and knowledgeable within those areas to make sure that we are thinking about all the different things when we try to configure, or at least as many things as possible. And so with that, we used existing staff. So this represents the existing staff that worked on that. Some of those areas did have to backfill those positions in order to keep their daily operations going, and other ones kind of went down to a skeleton crew. People kind of doubled up on their job duties while other people were out of the office working on the project. So that's what the $6 million at the bottom is. So our expected to be for our project cost.
So which cost is included in that? The actual cost, or there was an analysis done as far as backfill and double duty and that kind of thing? Is that the gross cost that went out?
This is the cost of the people who actually worked on the project.
Okay,
This is not
what I
the
mean though
cost
is
of
that
backfill.
if you worked on the project, were you then coded to this code?
That's correct.
And even if you worked 8 hours on this code, did you split your hours between, or let's say you worked 8 hours on this code, but you also worked a couple hours a day on your regular job?
Then you were split.
You did split those hours
Yes.
out. So okay.
So we tracked actual hours that worked on this project. Some people were 100%. They were taken out of their daily duties and put
Okay.
on the project. And then other people were splitting their time on how much time they were spending on the project versus back in their home office doing their
Gotcha.
daily duties.
But if they brought someone in, then the department absorbed that cost within their budget.
That's correct. So for every time they worked on the project, there was operational savings within that department. And with that operational savings was used to backfill positions that had to be backfilled in order to continue the system running, or the city running on a daily basis.
So we don't know the real net, because there may have been departments that did not backfill, and that person's salary or compensation was charged to this project, and the department didn't bring anyone else in, so they recognized the savings. So
That's
the
correct.
net, I would assume that
The
the
net would
net
be less
cost
than
would be
this.
less than this, is what I'm getting at.
That's correct.
How much,
net-
we don't really know, but it's less than this. Okay.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
Because we didn't necessarily track all of the backfill coming in
Right.
each particular department, but we did track those people who were working specifically on the project.
Gotcha, okay. And when you say value of project, that's basically then just total cost of project?
Right. We use value of project just because for that specific example of there was some areas who did not backfill, and so there would have been overall savings to the city.
Yeah, that's gross cost then, in other
Correct.
words. And figuring that the net cost would be less
Would be
than
less than that.
Okay.
That's correct. And Mayor, that's what we have.
So according to these
today.
numbers, you came in under budget.
We came in under budget. Yes, we did.
You didn't say it, so I figured I would.
I started with it, but
Now, were these numbers that you came in under budget, were those calculated using the old system or the new system?
well,
She has an
I
answer
have-
for that.
I do. I have a good.
Or both?
Both. Because if you notice, most of the work was put before the financial system went live. So most of the work was tracked in our old system. So when we went to pull these numbers together, we pulled the 12-13, anything after July 1st of 2013 later to see what we worked on the project. It took us about 5 to 10 minutes to pull those numbers. When we went to pull the numbers for anything out of the old system, it took 2 people 1 week to go back and pull all of the documents, make sure they included everything, all of the pieces, make sure they were all together, to pull it all together. So that's just one of the big examples of the difference between the old system, which was not integrated, was not really set up in a nice way for us to track and query, versus the new system where it literally took them 5 to 10 minutes to go in, run a query, get the result, and then confirm them against the second data source just to confirm them.
So I would assume going forward, from what I hear, that you believe there will be real cost savings as opposed to, efficiencies that are nice. I mean, you just demonstrated right there a real cost saving.
That's correct, and that's part of the environment of going from that into that analytical environment. It allows staff to start taking 5 minutes to retrieve the data and taking the rest of their time to actually analyze it and spend more time on that side versus a week to just retrieve the data and then start their analysis.
Mayor, when we presented this at the beginning, we had a hard time in trying to figure out if we were going to be able to save personnel positions or whatever. We weren't sure we were going to do that. And there was a lot of sensitivity, both by the council and the employees, about, well, is this a way to reduce staff and how that's going to affect positions? So we didn't really make a big deal or really figure what that calculation was in, because what was really driving us was the obsolescence of the system we had, plus the fact that for some of us, the decisions that were being made and how the decisions were being made weren't really being driven by data. They were driven by past experience and kind of based on what feels good. What I think we're hoping as we see as the reports come out, we will hopefully be able to make better decisions and have better information in front of us in the analysis standpoint. So we're not having to spend so much effort just trying to come up with a number of what it is we're looking at, but the analysis will help us improve the qualitative part of our recommendations and what we're looking for within our system, what the activity level and how things are happening, and put it in a more timely basis, and that's the other key. I mean, we'd eventually be able to get the right information, but by the time we'd get it, we could be 30 days, 2 weeks behind when we actually needed to make a decision. So what we're hoping is that the qualitative side of this, of our recommendations and decisions, will improve with better, timely information.
Okay. All right. Questions, comments? None? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is acknowledge receipt of minutes and various board motion from Councilmember Glover, second from Councilmember Kavanaugh. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Here reports on meetings and conferences attended. Have any reports? Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder, we've been looking forward to this all year round. We have the Holiday Toy Drive and Pancake Breakfast hosted by Councilmember Kavanaugh, which will be this Saturday, December 7th, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Fire Station 207. That's the Dobson Road Fire Station. So we invite everyone to come and we invite them to bring a new unwrapped toy to benefit patients at the Cardin Children's Medical Center. I think we'll hear a little bit more about those efforts upstairs tonight. So we invite everybody to participate in that program or that event. And then just a reminder, our next study session will be this Thursday, December 5th at 7:30 a.m. And I believe there's a public safety committee meeting that will follow.
Okay. Councilman Kavanaugh.
And just a little bit of a piggyback for the breakfast on Saturday. Given the weather forecasts, I want to assure you that we have rented portable heaters as well.
There'll be seasonal temperatures.
It'll be very seasonal for like the Midwest. Yeah.
You're going to have anniversary pancakes because it's my 22nd anniversary.
Oh, very good.
What a request.
All right. Anything else? A motion adjourned from Councilmember Summers, second from Councilman Kavanaugh. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.